I was hired to help a toothpaste manufacturer in New Jersey with their first Kaizen event in many, many years. When I walked the plant with them, we aligned around one area to work on first that was small and would have significant impact for the rest of the plant, which was the materials preparation area. Because this was their first Kaizen in many years, I coached them to communicate and engage the top potential team members and get them really excited about this Kaizen. The makeup of the team, I told them, was quite critical, and we need to over-communicate and not delegate the invitation to join the team to anybody else. That we should look at them in the eye, one-on-one, to truly understand if they were interested and try to convince and influence them to participate. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. They delegated the invitations to their potential team members, and some were just emailed to show up on the first day of the Kaizen. Unfortunately, I didn't know anything about that. But as you'll find out in this story, it definitely affected the experience of my team members. So I'm going to tell you about 2 or 3 of these team members. The first one is about Chuck. So Chuck was asked to join the team via email, and he wasn't part of this materials preparation group, but the team leader thought that he would be a great addition because he was always very helpful and had lots of ideas. So, sounded good to me. So on the first day of the Kaizen, after training, we all walked out into the materials preparation area looking for improvements in safety and productivity and organization and other things. And I noticed that most of the team members were writing furiously on their post-it notes with lots of ideas. But Chuck wasn't writing anything. So I took him aside while we were still in the area and asked him if he had any ideas to share. And he told me that he really didn't know the area, so he really didn't know if he had any ideas. I said, well, that's why we brought you in, because we wanted your outside perspective, and any idea is a good idea. So don't be afraid to write just any idea that you see that you think might help. We'll bring those back to the meeting room. Well, when we got back to the meeting room and we were sharing our ideas, it turned out that Chuck had written nothing. So, what to do? So I decided to try to engage him in other things, to gather the ideas and group them and post them on the wall and participate in that way. And things seemed to be going pretty well as we prioritized ideas to work on the next morning. Unfortunately, the next morning, when the team met, Chuck wasn't there. Well, where was Chuck? So nobody had heard from him. So at the first break, the team leader went out onto the floor and found Chuck, who thought his ideas weren't really important, so he just went back to his normal job. Luckily, the team leader was able to convince him to rejoin the team, and through the rest of the week, Chuck was extremely helpful and started bringing ideas to the team and really became a great team member. The next person I'm going to tell you about, his name is Ethan, and he was the mechanical supervisor. So our thought with Ethan was he knew how to get anything done in the plant, and he would be able to help us with some of the more complex ideas that might occur, or the mechanical ideas that might occur. Well, it turns out on the evening of the first day, as the team prioritized the things they wanted to work on, one of the things that rose to the top was airflow in the area, that it just wasn't good and it was hurting the productivity in the materials preparation area. Well, Ethan clearly did not agree of the idea of airflow. He could not see the connection between that and what we were trying to accomplish. And he raised the point that he was not asked, but he was voluntold to join the group. So we started to try to understand how we could help Ethan. And by the end of the day, he said that he would check on the airflow and give a report to the team the next morning. But he kind of stormed off, so I wasn't real encouraged. So the next morning, I decided to go around the room and get people's feedback on the first day, since it truly was their first Kaizen in many, many years. When we got to Ethan, he basically said he had nothing to say. When I pressed him a little bit, he said, well, I've got nothing more, but everything's okay. Well, clearly, this was not okay. So finally, I was able to get him to tell us that nobody told him about this Kaizen. He basically was told at the last minute, and he had lots of other work to do, and he didn't agree with the priorities of the group, that how would this help the materials preparation be better. Now, once he let that out, he started to engage and align and start to kind of figure out how he could be helpful to the team the rest of the week. So all of a sudden his mood changed once he had blurted all of that out. And at the end of the week, when we got everybody's feedback again, he said he was just happy that he had decided to speak up because it made the Kaizen so much better for him and the rest of the team. So that was great. Now let me tell you about James. James's story was challenging in that the first couple days he was working as though he was agreeing and aligning with everything the team was working on. He seemed pleased. He seemed to go along with the priorities, and he was hands-on helping. On the morning of the third day, though, he showed up 10 minutes early when it was just myself and the team leader and told us directly that we were working on the wrong things and he didn't want to be here. So he left because we knew we couldn't force him to be on this team. Now, at a break, again, after losing James, I decided it was time to bring the production manager and the plant manager up to speed and talk about what had happened and why these things were happening. Well, when the plant manager heard the story about James, she just couldn't believe it. And she realized that the way we had engaged the team members prior to the Kaizen was certainly not ideal. But she also wanted to convince James to come back and join the team. Being that she was the plant manager, no one was going to stop her. So she did. She went out, she talked to James, and she was able to convince him to rejoin. And through the rest of the Kaizen, James, after he had said his piece, was very engaged. And by the end, in the report out, he actually gave some nice, favorable remarks to those in the audience. Now, I knew this was something we could have avoided. So when this was all over, the staff and I had a discussion about how we could be better for the next Kaizen teams, to make this better for the plant and better for the team members. But also, the things we would have lost, or we probably lost, by the approach that we did. We certainly spent more time than we would have liked trying to re-engage the team, and certainly some of the attitudes rubbed off on others and confused people. So we took an oath right then and there that from then on, every team member would be spoken to directly, making sure we could address their concerns prior to starting of any Kaizen event. And from then on, the results of their Kaizen events have been not only more productive, but teams have really coalesced and become teams in a much more positive way. I hope this story provided you with some inspiration to revisit your own processes. I have a lot more I'd like to share. Head over to pi-partners.com to learn how I can help. And check back from time to time for more Kaizen stories.